Welcome back, episode 8 of my podcast. We are December 22nd, Friday. Bitcoin's at 43,700, and we're about 2 weeks out from the Bitcoin ETF, maybe just a little bit more than 2 weeks. In this episode, I haven't done a video in a little bit. In this episode, I want to cover some of the things that I've been following on Twitter this week, some of the things that I've been tweeting about, my general conviction on the ETF, that it's happening, and really why I'm so convinced now that this is going to be a much bigger deal than the halving, and how it's going to play into the price action for 2024 and 2025. I'm going to talk about the implications of possibly reaching $500,000 to $1 million a coin in this cycle, potentially in the next 2 years. And potentially a bear market that might happen after we reach this kind of, $500,000 to $1 million mark, which is more or less parity with gold. So finally, I'm going to talk about the sort of seasons metaphor of Bitcoin summer, Bitcoin winter, where that is, just kind of close off with my general views of the market opportunity right now as we wind down 2023. So if you're following me, thank you very much. I've been enjoying getting some more followers on Twitter, and I've been enjoying making these presentations. My perspective on this is that I'm a Bitcoiner. I own a lot of Bitcoin. I want Bitcoin to go up. I'm not 100% a maxi on Bitcoin. I am very interested in the ordinal space as well for various reasons. But I really want the best for Bitcoin. So let's now see if I can get this. Let's see if I can get this screen to work. Okay, great. So here we are. This is Bitcoin right now, and we're at 43.8 now. And you look at the sort of longer term chart here, and I'm not a technical person. I don't draw lines on charts, but it does really look like we are going to take another shot at 66,000 here, and for a lot of reasons I'm going to talk about. I'm convinced that we are going to break through that, and we're going to go much higher. So that's kind of the impact there. Okay, so now why am I so convinced on this ETF? Well, I think the person to follow really here is James Seyffart. I think that's the pronunciation of his name. So James is from Bloomberg. He's really one of the best people. Him and Eric Balakunas, also from Bloomberg, are really the point people on this ETF. And we are getting now down to where is this ETF going to be trading? And so it's not all. Some of the ETF participants are saying they're going to trade on the CBOE. Others are saying we're going to trade on Nasdaq. But we're getting to the fine print of this ETF. I fully expect this thing is going to be live on January 8th, but probably not much before then. And the reason is I had posted, Scaramucci put something about, hey, maybe it'll happen right before Christmas, but no, we're in the comment period. Joe Carlisale mentioned that correctly. We're in a comment period that ends January 5th. There's no chance that it's happening this year. So it really looks like early next year, early January is when it happens. I don't think there's going to be a rogue poll or anything here. I think, it would make Gensler look very, very stupid if he did that, or deceitful. I just don't see it. So, and neither does the betting markets at this point. So that's why at this point, I feel like it's a done deal, the CTF. Now, everybody seeing this ETF is sort of interested in, well, how much can this move the market? And I've sort of made sort of general arguments why I think there could be up to $100 million, $100 billion coming into this ETF, and But let's get a little bit more granular, right? And let's compare this ETF effect versus the halving. So I put this tweet out 2 days ago, and the tweet is that the effect of the halving is very simple. We reduced the Bitcoin issuance from 900 Bitcoin per day to 450 Bitcoin per day. So at this current price, that's about $7 billion per year. Now, of course, 2024 doesn't get the full gist of that because the halving starts in April. So let's just think it's around $7 billion a year. Now, do we really honestly think that there's not going to be $7 billion a day from a $10 trillion plus ETF market and $100 trillion plus overall sort of managed money market? No, I think that it really, that's a very small number, $7 billion, I think, in the greater scheme of things. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to happen. Now, people have pointed out to me, well, Fred, yeah, it's not 7 billion because Bitcoin's going to go up from the halving. So let's look at the scenarios here, right? And the scenarios are, okay, let's suppose Bitcoin does go up to 100,000, say, in mid-2024, right? Now the halving shock, right, the supply shock is actually closer to $16 billion. But you have to ask yourself, okay, at $100,000, don't we believe that Wall Street's going to be somewhat more interested in Bitcoin than they are right now? Don't we believe that ETF demand will be potentially 30 billion or even higher in year one? So again, in this scenario, the ETF is several times bigger in terms of impact than the halving. So let's take a sort of opposite scenario, which I don't believe in, but let's just go through the thought experiment. Let's say Bitcoin goes to 20,000. Well, the halving, effect is now only 3 billion. But the ETF will probably bring that in the first week, sort of regardless, just because people are going to want to get in this new instrument regardless of the market being down to 20,000. So I really just don't see any scenario analysis in which the ETF is not significant. Now, having said that, I do not think this is going to happen all at once. I think people thinking that there's going to be 10 billion on the first week are going to be disappointed. I think it's going to be, a billion or 2 or 3 the first week. And, people may even sort of sell the news a little bit because they're going to be like, oh, okay, it's over. That was it. But I think that's not the trade here. I think the trade is to really hold through 2024 and really, I think there's this cumulative effect of the halving, the hype, the marketing of the Bitcoin thing, and the fact that we're now entering the so-called Bitcoin summer. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I think this effect will be felt sort of throughout 2024 and through 2025. And I think it could really lead to a mega cycle where we reach something like 500,000 to 1 million. Now, a little bit of a side note, I really got serious about Bitcoin in 2019 when I had the pleasure of hanging out in Bermuda for the Jewel banking launch, the Jewel banking launch. And Tom was a featured speaker and just hung out with us, and I took a boat ride with him in Bermuda. It was fun. And, we're talking a lot with Tom about, where he saw Bitcoin at the time. Bitcoin was at 5,000, and, Tom really said $1 million was his target. And so, it got me thinking, and I pressed him for why he thought that. He went into sort of this demographic argument, which I've tweeted about a little bit. I won't go into too much, but I really believed in it, and I took a significant Bitcoin position at that time. And I've since moved more money into Bitcoin, and I've held my Bitcoin. So that really gave me a lot of Bitcoin conviction. But his target was 1 million, and it really sort of seems like we might be able to reach that kind of sort of zip code in this Bitcoin cycle, in the upcoming Bitcoin cycle. So having said that, I'm going to say, that nothing would make me happier than Bitcoin 1 million. Now, we're seeing some people saying this is a bad thing. An example would be Stephen Luca from Swan, excellent guy, great. Swan's great, and they've done a lot for Bitcoin. But Stephen is saying the most probable attack vector is not a Bitcoin ban; it's to pump the price to 1 million through a regulated ETF. And that really amused me. And my comment was, Bitcoin 1 million is, if Bitcoin 1 million is an attack vector, well then attack me more, please. Because, at the end of the day, although I'm sympathetic to some of these, Bitcoin is a freedom currency, it will sort of force governments to be more responsible. I'm not sure I completely believe it for anything close to the short or medium term. I think governments are going to be irresponsible for a long time, probably for the rest of my life. And so, I think of Bitcoin more as a lifeboat. That there's 21 million of these things. You can grab them. They can do very well for you personally as investments. They're very good long-term investments. You don't need to sell them, but I really don't. I'm not worried about I'm not worried about any scenario where Bitcoin goes to $1 million a coin. I'm just not. So I found that amusing. Now, if Bitcoin gets to $500,000 or $1 million a coin, could we see sort of a major bull market? Well, I do think that that's possible too. And I just want to go over the gold chart really with you guys a bit, because this gold chart was something that, I lived through this. And, in 2000, after the housing market crash, there was, once you got into 2003, 2004, there wasn't a lot of inflation really going on. Inflation was pretty much dead. In fact, we were just, globalization was really getting into high gear. Chinese goods were flooding the U.S. There wasn't a lot of inflation, but there was starting to be asset price increasing, notably in housing, in real estate, right? So there was a housing bubble that was forming, and gold started rising with that housing bubble. But the real reason gold rose was because you had these sort of monetary expansion, plus you had this introduction of this ETF, very similar to now the story of Bitcoin, right? We have a monetary expansion that looks likely, right? And I'll talk about that at the very end, right? Where interest rates are now coming down, we may be getting into a pump zone, a money printer go brr zone, right? And at the same time, you have a new ETF which enables Wall Street, and by Wall Street I mean retail investors as well as professional investors as well as institutions, to easily buy the asset, right? And look what it did for gold. Gold went from $400 an ounce, right? And I was long, all the way from here, I bought physical gold right around here and the $300 an ounce. I was long Newmont, Barrick Gold, all these kind of Canadian and African gold producers. But then the ETF came out, and really this thing just went really fantastic. Like, if you think about it, it went down with with everything else, with the great financial crisis, but then it roared back up with the QE, and it really hit $1,825 an ounce in July of 2011. And that's when so about 6 years later, right, 5.5 years later, the gold price peaked, and it would be 8 years before that peak repeated. And this was very, very painful for everybody who all these real serious gold bugs who were in there at this point. So, the Peter Schiffs of the world were just as bullish in 2011 as they are now. But they were very, very wrong for a very long period of time, and they're just kind of getting back to where they were in 2011. So, I do think this kind of scenario is possible in Bitcoin. And one of the reasons I also think it's possible, I think once you get to $1 million a coin, I think you're on parity with gold. You've had this mega 20x run up, and it's very possible that Wall Street takes another look at the asset, views it as risky, trades it in a sort of bear to sideways market for a very long period of time, and it needs to be rediscovered again in somewhere like 2033 or something like that. So this is exactly I didn't take this from Bob Lucas, but I was sort of thinking the exact same thing. And Bob, who is just has some really excellent charts, and is a great person to follow for these cycles. He put this out, and he got a lot of hate for it. So that was something that was really important. So just realized